We're live! Hello everybody, how's it going? How's it going? So today we're joined by Josh and Jeff, and okay, I just want to say something for the beginning. So first of all, how are you doing today? How are you doing today?
I'm pumped, ready to go.
Pumped, ready to go?
Yeah, doing great.
Doing great. How are you, SVB?
I am psyched to shit, ML.
Psyched
I started
as
off with
shit?
swear already. Let's go.
Yeah, perfect. Honestly, I feel kind of like low energy because I just lost two CP maps. So in case I feel like, just so you know, it's because of the losing. You know, today's winning Wednesday and kind of like lost a lot. Anyway, I guess let's start with some introductions. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself, Jeff, first?
Sure. So I'm Jeff. I'm the lead hero designer.
So like the boss, I guess. The boss man.
Yep. I'm the boss.
I see.
Josh, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Josh Renaud. I'm a senior designer for the hero design team.
So second boss, I guess, kind of like that.
Mini boss, mini boss.
Wait, and who's the fourth person on the call? Anybody knows? SVB?
Who Meagle old. I'm SVB. I'm senior content creator at my own stream.
Senior content creator at your own stream. Okay, I'm still a junior at my stream, honestly. Olaf's like the one that is doing all the streams and stuff. But yeah, so before we jump into discussions, I know that SVB has a question for you, and he has been dying to ask you this, okay? Like last night, after I spent like 5 hours talking with him last night, we do this every night, he just told me that this is the question that he really wanted to ask you.
Yeah, it's
All right,
been
hit
burning
me.
a hole in me. You ready? You ready,
Yep.
Jeff?
Yep.
What hero do you main?
Yeah, this is like a pretty common question, actually. I get asked. Honestly, I feel like it's a little bit of a trap. I'm always a little worried about it. I probably shouldn't be, but the reality is, it's like when I'm playing, I'm usually playing like whatever I feel like maybe needs attention, or people are saying is either overpowered or underpowered or whatever. Just trying to like kind of get a gauge of, if I agree with it or not, whatever. But when I'm not doing that, if I'm really just playing like, I just don't play, whatever I want to play this time. It's I play a lot of hit scan. I play like Widow, Soldier.
The hero.
We're getting there.
Come on, drop it.
I play
Don't be sprayed,
Junkrat,
Jeff.
although I do love Junkrat. I know.
We said this yesterday.
Junkrat, he's about as far away from hit scan as possible. I know it's kind of opposite of what I just said, but I just have so much fun with him. I don't know. He's kind of just chaos incarnate, and I don't know. I like to, I don't stand back and spam the corridor. I go for like sort of the meme air shots and
all
flying
Junkrat
direct
players
hits
say
and
that.
stuff.
Jeff, all Junkrat players say that, but then I randomly die from across the map and they go like calculated, calculated.
Yeah.
Skillful.
Fair enough.
What about you, Josh?
I think I called that, ML. I called that, by the way. I want to put it on
you called
record.
that. Yeah, you called that. I remember.
Yeah, I think in terms of like hours played, my most played heroes are probably Zarya, Ana, Mei, Pharah, and Tracer.
Wait, you said May. Okay,
Ooh.
goodbye.
Yeah.
That's a good hero pool. I respect that.
That's a noble hero pool. There's Jeff over here with the Junkrat. Josh has got the noble hero pool.
Imagine if you two.
At least no one can.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, at least no one can say that I'm Junkrat's like getting favorite balance treatment, because I don't think a lot of people considered him to be super good, except for Donkey apparently.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. You got a point. I just don't want to play against you two. Junkrat and May. No. I don't want to do that. Speaking of playing against you and stuff, I gotta ask you this. Okay, this is my question. What is SAG argue? What's your SAG? Peak SAG.
I like Plat a little high.
Plat,
So I know
huge. That is good. That is very good. It is.
Yeah.
Up above the average gamer.
Yeah.
I always feel like I could, like, if I really push, I could get through and like really focus on a hero. But as I said, I don't really do that. But also, I'm sure that's what everybody thinks. So
Yeah.
that's probably not true. I don't know.
Plat chat, goes like one of us.
Yeah.
So you have us on your side. What about you, Josh?
My peak is 4350.
Giga
I never
Chad.
actually broke into the 4400, but
Giga Chad.
yeah.
This perfectly encapsulates the sort of dichotomy of the Overwatch community, where it's like Jeff is like, if I try, I think I can get out of plat. And then there's Josh like, man, I'm really struggling to peak 44, man. It's tough out here.
The duality. The duality.
Yep.
All right, well, I guess we got a chance to know each other a little bit better. Now let's talk about where we're gonna have dinner. No, I guess we should get this started, right? Let's get this rolling. Before I hop into the questions, I just want to clarify today, while I'm staring into your soul, we will only talk about balance changes, okay? About the balance changes that happened in the previous beta. With this being said, are you ready for the questions? Are you ready for the questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Good.
let's go.
Let's go.
First of all. I'm curious about your personal views on this. Who's more annoying to play against? DOOMFIST tank or DOOMFIST DPS?
So I thought it was interesting because I discovered as we were talking about this that me and Josh have different views on this. I definitely felt like, to me, the DPS version was, more frustrating to play against. But I'm also the one who led the charge on the DOOMFIST rework, so maybe that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I kind of fall to the tank side of things. Like, they're annoying for different reasons. Like tank Doomfist, you just can't kill him, and he's always getting away, sort of like Wrecking Ball, and he's also like snaring you and doing all sorts of things. So we are probably going to try to look at making him a little bit less annoying if we can, but it's not really, a question of he's too powerful or something. It's more like trying to even out the gameplay experience for everyone.
I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, we have
Go ahead.
we have a change actually planned for beta 2 that's we'll see how this plays, but we're going to try just removing the snare from a seismic slam entirely. It's a pretty big shift because it's not just like reducing the snare or something, it's like just killing it.
Completely removing it. That's
But
bold.
there's a bit of shenanigans you can do with it beyond just the normal snaring people. Like, you could snare somebody and then ult them if it's like an Ana or Zen or something like that. Like, they're kind of screwed because the snare just makes they can't even get out of the ring. So like, certainly solves those problems as well, and we'll make sure that he's ends up being balanced correctly afterwards if necessary, or maybe maybe it ends up being a bad idea, but we'll see. But that's the plan anyway.
As a support player, I completely approve of this.
All the support
Yeah.
players happy. We already got a leak, ML. We already got a leak out. It's successful.
That's right.
End now.
Exactly.
End call now.
Exactly.
Okay, was it my turn now? Can I ask
Your
my
turn.
question?
Yes, kind sir.
My turn? Okay. So I'm serious, full serious mode, guys. Proper question. How do you balance between the roles? So how do you feel about the power of each role relative to each other? So do tanks need to be as strong as DPS, as strong as supports? Because you know how the community are. Every role thinks the other role is the strongest. So you gotta answer how you feel about this.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends how you define like power. Like, how do they have equal power? Because they're all doing different things in the game, and really, sort of the end goal is to make sure they all have an impact on the outcome of the match and have like a way to kind of carry through their own skills. Um, if we're talking about power just in terms of numbers or something, then in Overwatch 2, it's going to be tanks. There's only one of them, so they've just kind of got more stats than everyone else relatively.
Can I ask something? In your view, who do you think has the highest carry potential out of all of the three roles? Your personal points on this, based on your games. Who can carry the game the hardest?
I mean, I've seen all the roles carry like super
Yeah.
hard in different ways because, sometimes you just can't kill anything, and support are just like making big plays, and Ana lands the anti-nade and a sleep on somebody, and it's just like team fights won. Reinhardt can come out of nowhere and just earth shatter the entire team, and that's like a really obvious example of like he literally won that fight by himself. He just killed everybody. But there are a lot more nuanced situations, like that kind of just win the fight. If Mercy's kind of juggling between like healing 3 different people that are all crit health, and it's like having that decision making to which target are you going to focus first and kind of keep them up, like that often wins fights too.
So players win fights, not heroes, from what I see. Which is, I agree with you completely, honestly. Like, for example, like a Mercy healing people that are critical HP, prioritizes the healing and so on. I feel like people don't talk about that often. And I'm happy to see that you guys think about that as well, as in like who carried that team fight, and that everybody actually contributes to the team fight. No matter if like DPSs get the cool kills and supports just like heal, for example, in that case. Although supports shouldn't only heal. Speaking of which... What does balance mean in your opinion? As in, what's a balanced Overwatch game? What should a balanced tank, DPS, and support do?
I mean, it's kind of a tough question to answer, but I mean, broadly speaking, I would say our goal is just to make sure that every hero is viable. That doesn't mean that every hero is viable in every situation and every map and everything. I mean, I actually think it's fairly healthy for the game when certain heroes really shine on certain maps, and it's kind of a strategic decision-making play and when to do that. You know, obviously there are a lot of maps that Widowmaker's great on, and other maps she's not. As an example, and there were like, you know, Bastion maps that were, you know, people tended to play, like Route 66 and Junkertown and stuff. Those are the ones people favored to try to make the Bastion work, at least for one run usually, stuff like that. So I really liked it when the maps get integrated that well to the balance and the heroes. And there's a lot of just verticality elements, of course, too. Something like Hollywood 2 is like, you know, are you really going to run around there with Tracer? I mean, maybe, but it's going to be kind of tough depending on how you want to deal with the guys on the upper ground. But the real thing we just want to make sure is that every hero is viable, and also if you want to play like an off meta pick or something, you know what the meta is, but you just want to play Junkrat, let's say, that it's not like so out of bounds that you're just like actually throwing. I know some people would say you're throwing. I don't think you're throwing. I think
Jeff's been
as
playing
Josh
one
just
too
brought
many
up,
times.
it's the
Yeah.
player, you know.
That's actually my biggest pet peeve, if I can just like rant for a second. Where
Go,
Go on,
Josh,
go
go.
on.
you
Do
know, just Overwatch League is a completely different game in terms of like their coordination and teamwork, and kind of what we've seen over the years on the ladder is that you can really make anything work. There's a lot of players that, you know, you jump into rank and you pick some off meta pick, and they're just gonna threaten to throw your game or something, you know. But really, if you work together, you can kind of succeed with any hero and any comp, even if it's like, you know, suboptimal. It's not like a reason to tilt. And one of the interesting things we saw from stats, just looking at different regions, they tend to have different metas at, you know, different times. Like the Asia region, they're really heavily involved in like Winston and Zarya dive, and they'll kind of see the most meta slaving, I guess, in terms of you know, what they're picking, because there's some heroes like with a super low win rate, or super low pick rate and super low win rate, like Moira over there, and it's just they refuse to play that hero. And then at the same time, we'll see the opposite in like EU, where she's doing really well, and all the heroes are kind of balanced in their pick rate and win rates more. So there's really this kind of like regional thing where just a lot of heroes are more viable than people think, and they're kind of end up getting stuck in their own narrative, you know, of like what you
Yeah.
see with your own kind of perspective when you're playing the game. Yeah, end of rant. Sorry about.
No, that's a
Okay.
chat
Yeah.
mentality. That's the 4.3K mentality
exactly,
right there.
Exactly. Like these two answers have been very enlightening for me, at least, because I've always viewed Overwatch as in like some heroes are good on some maps, some heroes are bad on some maps, and seeing that you take this into consideration a lot just shows that. I don't know. I like hearing this instead of like that hero is not played, so we're just gonna buff this hero to be played. So like literally, certain heroes should work better than others in other situations, and this is like where it like all balances around, I guess, which is honestly thumbs up.
Which actually leads nicely to my question as well, the next question. So feel free to kind of spitball off this, whoever's going to answer, Jeff or Josh. How does the ranking affect that, you know, that desire for you guys to make every hero viable as well? Like, do you care if a certain hero is not being played in gold, and if one hero is being, you know, really heavily played in owl, but another one isn't? Like, does that influence your decision making at all?
It does. It's, you know, we would love to have every hero be playable in at least a certain amount or be played at all ranks. That said, it's not. I would say it's not like the number one priority, and there are situations or heroes where we know that things are not going to work out that way, and it's kind of like a sacrifice because of the nature of the hero. So, for example, you look at a hero like Widowmaker. Like, is Widowmaker going to be as strong at the lower ranks? Like, we know she's not, because we really put a lot of pressure on her aim skill, and you don't get to fire that often, so your expression of accuracy is expressed more aggressively than other heroes. You know, that's also true for a new hero like Sojourn, very similar. So, you know, there are things we look at, certainly on the stats and everything, to make sure that they're still played, because, you know, at that lower ranks, all that's true that I said about Widowmaker, but at the same time, she kind of gets free reign at those ranks a lot. Like, no one's really pressuring her a lot of times. They're not really looking for her. They don't know she's there. You can kind of sit in one spot a lot of times, and you're not really expecting Winston to jump on you anytime soon or get flanked or something. So there are like some defensive benefits at that rank too. So I don't say it completely balances out. Where like I said, there's some sort of concessions we're making sometimes for certain heroes where we know it's going to be, and and the reverse is true too. We've seen Bastion's obviously super strong at very low ranks, enough where that was maybe a little bit of a problem. We're looking at reworking him anyway because it was just like really hard to balance it all at the higher ranks without completely eviscerating the low ranks. But if you guys remember, we did a change for Reaper at one point where we buffed his passive to I think 50%.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I
I
didn't
remember
foresee
I play
that.
Reaper, Jeff.
I didn't see that coming, but that was a drastic swing. I mean, people were complaining, especially at the low ranks, that he was just unkillable, and the stats represented that as well. They just showed that that's true. So I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect the leech would be the thing that would cause that to happen because it's hard to know how much incoming damage versus outgoing damage is going on at different ranks. And at the higher ranks, it's just people are much more accurate and able to focus him and punish him for flanks and stuff. So it was less of a big deal. So it was like maybe more balanced at the higher ranks, but we had to change it anyway because the low ranks it was just like that was pushing it too far. So that's a case where it was like, okay, this is too far. We can't let this sit. We got to pull this back and come up with something else. So it can't happen.
So is it fair to say you kind of it's more like a consideration, like you don't want anything to be unfun to play against in
Yeah.
a certain rank, but you're not like gonna shove it in and force it.
Yeah, like Sojourner Widow, for example, I don't think they need to have fundamental design changes to their hero kits to try to make it completely even across the board. I think we just kind of expect, we know when we're making a hero like that whenever we put that much pressure on aim skill, we know it's going to have that kind of impact and we have to be okay with it. But, we're monitoring all the time, like I mentioned with the Reaper case. So as long as it's within reason, then we're happy with it.
Speaking about monitoring all the time, what's the best way for the community to give feedback for the heroes they're playing? And what type of feedback is helpful for you as a designer?
So we go through a lot of feedback like on a daily basis. And really, if you're just kind of ranting on forums or Twitter or something, and it's just like quick, hey, this Bastion sucks, or Roadhog's overpowered, and like that's the end of your feedback, like that kind of just gets glazed over and tossed out because there's so much of it. It's just
I see. Okay.
it's not super helpful. Like the feedback we like to see is kind of like digging into like what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. So you might be thinking like, oh, I feel like Roadhog's overpowered because he has this one-shot kill. If I get hit by the hook, it's over for me. I don't feel like I have a way to escape. And that's a lot more useful for us to try to figure out a solution. A lot of times people do suggest solutions to us, and that's like a fun kind of brainstorming exercise. But I think the problem we see with that is usually if it's on a forum or something, people start trying to pick it apart and like the message gets lost a little bit. It's like, oh no, this solution doesn't work for whatever reason. And that's kind of like, it ends up being the focus a little too much rather than, what the problem is.
So we should find the problems, talk about them, talk about why they're the problems, come up with solutions and so on, but like not be forced, not like discuss about them that much, as we can all agree that the more people talk about finding like problems about a certain hero, like Hog's one-shot ability, for example, and Hog just being annoying, and ban Hog and remove Hog and stuff like that. Yeah, Hog one-trick ponies in ranked games. Yeah, avoid.
You're reading my post right now, ML. You're reading my Twitter post right now.
Yeah, I'm reading your Twitter post right now. I have it right here. I also have a poster with it in the left. So yeah, okay, I got it. So we just like gotta talk about the problems a little bit more and why they are problems, and then you're gonna take them into consideration to see what you can come up with to fix them.
Right, and that's not to say we need like a whole essay on it or anything. It's just like a couple well-reasoned paragraphs or sentences even is like a lot more effective than having like this huge memorandum or like document.
Understand? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Or like delete Roadhog is like the way I think of it is like in my mind. I mean, I wouldn't say, I don't want to make it sound like we're like completely ignoring that feedback, but the way I kind of think of it is like, okay, in my mind it goes into like the voter ballot box of like, okay, somebody didn't like this, but I can't do much with that unless it's like, there's like so many of them that it's overwhelming and the box is overflowing with these little notes that I put in there effectively. Then it's like, okay, maybe I'll look in and try to figure it out, I guess, what people are mad about. But it's a lot less impactful, I would say, to say the least, than having some more well-reasoned posts and stuff like that. So
insightful.
The hashtags don't work. The hashtags don't work. Delete Roadhog, delete Brig. They don't work.
We haven't deleted anything yet.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Express your problem, not necessarily your, unfiltered emotion. That's how I'd summarize it, right? Express the problem like a therapist.
I mean,
Okay.
we
Go
don't
ahead,
hate
Jeff.
the emotion either. It's not like we're like trying to say don't have any emotion in your post and be like. I understand, like especially a lot of these posts. I feel like get made just after a ranked game or something, and like, I feel like it should be that mandatory cooldown period of posting after you quit the client or something. But no, I get it. So I mean, it's not you're not like hurry our feelings or anything. If it's super super ranty, it may affect the sort of validity of everything. But I'm not expecting it to be super clinical, but just having
Gotcha.
more reason the better.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Usually the biggest problem I see is, people turn the hyperbole up to 11, and it's just like
Yeah,
it's so hard to, get a read on like the actual
that's a
game
big
state if
problem.
everything is like the biggest problem in the game.
Yep.
Yeah, I get 5 biggest problems every day in my chat. Like, this is the one thing that is destroying Overwatch right now, is this
Mhm.
character.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys feel it. Okay, well, speaking of overreactions, there have been some to some of the changes you make. Well, there always is, but there's one in particular, the super jump, the Mercy super
Yeah.
jump. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of community discussion around, wait,
Mhm.
they allowed Genji, or they allowed Mercy super jump, but they didn't allow Genji ledge dash. So what's your stance? Like, where is it that a bug is okay, and when is it a bug that's not
Yeah.
okay?
This one's pretty tricky. We don't have like a hard rule or anything for every case. I think we kind of have to take it case by case. But the broad strategy is we first thing we do is look at the bugs, obviously see what's going on and see how buggy this stuff is and see what the results are and how consistent they are and how easy they are to pull off and just sort of do full investigation on what's actually going on. And then we have to decide if we want to integrate this into the hero or just fix the bugs. They can't do it anymore. And that's where it starts to get tricky. And realistically, we're trying to just put everything in that we can. I think it's something that players like generally, and often they're really kind of cool pieces of tech that we sort of enjoy seeing. And in some cases, it's just like, well, it's hard because these are bugs, right? So it's like we can't just be like, let's just not touch this for all. I'll get into the Mercy case in a second of why we didn't for a while for that one, but generally we don't like to just not touch them because you know what if sometimes it puts you through the floor or something like that, right? Like these are unintended things, so they're a little bit scary to just leave in the game and just hope it works out and there's no other weird interactions or anything, especially in a complicated game like Overwatch. So we tend to want to try to fix them and then in many cases implement them sort of in a more real way that's safer and we know that's not going to break the game in some horrible way. Um, so I think the two sort of extremes we're talking about here maybe is the Genji case and the Mercy case, and so I can talk about those specifically because, like I said, everything's kind of case by case. The Genji ledge dash, the first thing we noticed is it was sort of extreme how far you could go. Like you could launch like literally halfway across the map, which was like, okay, well, no matter what, that can't be allowed to stay. Like we either need to reduce the effect of the bug somehow, although it's a bug, so that's not easy to do because we'd have to implement something first to be able to like nerf it. Um, so then came up the question of Genji is like, should we implement this as like tech for him? And at least at the time, it was really like, do we really want Genji to have this much more mobility right now? Is this like what he needs and what he should have? And we sort of came away with that with no, he shouldn't have this. Like, I think it's a cool piece of tech. Like, it's interesting, but overall, the character, the end result's going to be we're going to have to nerf him somehow, right? If he ends up just being crazy, immediately what's going to happen is people are like, oh, Genji's super overpowered, needs to be nerfed. So then what do? Do we like nerf his damage or something, or his ult charge rate or something? And like, is that fair? So, that's kind of we have to think ahead. And that's where we're going to get to. So it's sort of like worth the sacrifice. I felt at the time. And then for the Mercy stuff, that bug's been interesting because it really it didn't really have any like major scary side effects, and it was um, fairly consistent. This is gonna sound some people won't agree with this, but it's fairly consistent to do once you know how to do it. Like it's a timing thing that's pretty tricky, but at least it didn't feel like sometimes when I do this, I like fly backwards to my spawn room or something weird. Because again, these are bugs. I don't know what's gonna happen. So once we kind of figure out what's going on, we're like, okay, we see why this is happening. This isn't like gonna cause any major issues. No one's gonna go through the floor with this one or anything crazy. So, we can let this one sit. But we had tried in the past actually of different ways to implement that. Didn't come up with anything really reasonable. Gave it up for a little while. Started reinvestigating it, especially with Overwatch 2. And then with this latest Overwatch 2 beta push, we really were just at the point where let's just try things. That's kind of why at the end of the beta, it's like if it felt like it was just kind of tossed into the beta, it was. Like that's the kind of iteration. Honestly, the community doesn't see that often. We spent a lot of time iterating on heroes, on just a design team, and we'll have ideas thrown up and discarded in a single day often. So coming up on that deadline of the beta, we're like, we know people just want to see more stuff, and we can kind of show our work a little bit here. And this probably isn't the solution, but it's kind of like the last week of beta. Let's just throw it in and see what people think, and it'll be kind of silly and kind of fun. But I don't think I expected that to like be the solution necessarily. But it was interesting to get feedback on it and see what people think. Obviously, it's a little overpowered and everything, but
Can I
that's kind of
quickly
where
ask
we're
a
at.
follow up on that?
Yeah.
Is that all right? I was just gonna say, was that generally your approach to the beta as well, where you were kind of like, we want to push the limits, like limit testing?
I think we feel more open to putting things earlier on the beta than we usually are for live, especially being a beta and a limited window, and just trying to have the community kind of be a little more involved with feedback and everything we're doing. So yeah, and especially as it went on, that I feel like that was more our philosophy. And I think for this Mercy case, we have a new design we're gonna play with. I guess I can mention it here. We have a beta 2 thought. I don't
Yes.
know if this is the one either. So there's all kinds of control scheme issues with
Yeah.
this, but
Okay.
I feel like this one doesn't sound maybe as good on paper, so I'm a little worried to say it, but just try it and then get back to me.
Okay.
And this one, the way it's currently working in beta 2 is you no longer have the crouch cancel to launch into the air. Instead, you basically you auto launch into the air if you reach your target all the way, so that you can cancel it still any way you want to.
Uh-huh.
But if you don't do anything, you just hit the button and let it go, you'll launch into the air. So it sounds a little scary at first, but a lot of what we're struggling with her is the control issues, because we crouch is already weird. Like we chose crouch, and I think some people are like, why is this on crouch? But it's like, well, we're already using space to cancel for the normal kind of space fast cancel glide. So space would be the obvious button otherwise. And we were trying all kinds of other things, and this kind of felt like, well, at least with this one, you still have space cancel and your normal GA kind of shift cancel, but in this case, it's kind of buttonless to have it happen at the end automatically. It's possible this doesn't work. I mean, this is what we're trying, and this is what the beta is for. So definitely get feedback on it. It's possible when you're in the middle of chaos and you forget to cancel in some way, and you launch in the air and didn't mean to, and you get sniped or something, you're gonna hate it. So we'll go back to the drawing board on it. But this is kind of just something we'd like to try and see how that feels.
I feel like it's one of those changes that until you experience it, it's very hard to like form an opinion, see how it actually feels in game. So I'm excited to see how it's gonna feel. Speaking of feeling and stuff, how do you feel about the updated SUPERJUMP that you talked about? Do you think that it makes Mercy easy, or it gives like more depth? So English, you know what I mean,
No,
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah, so this is like a really broad, so actually design question that kind of gets to the heart at is like how much sort of skill from a hero should come from like mechanical inputs, and how tricky should it be to do any particular move versus how should it be more like when you use it and how you use it in game and everything. So it's kind of right on that edge. I feel like where I know a lot of people will say there was a lot of skill in practicing the old super jump, and that's something you can gravitate or graduate to as you got better and get better at. But at a certain point, like we're looking at here like Mercy, and while I like that she has this extra skill component that isn't aim skill, because the goal for Mercy has always been not a big focus on aim skill and try to give her skill in many other places. So I at least appreciated that. But it felt like it was just a little too hard to do and really inconsistent for like an average player. And it started to get in that Genji case I mentioned before, where it's like, are we gonna have to start balancing for this, the fact that she can do this, because it's pretty powerful. And then if we start, let's say we nerf her healing or something to compensate for this, is if you're not doing this trick now, you're sort of like screwed, right? She's like not, you're losing a lot of power basically out of the hero. So it kind of can become a bit of a balance nightmare. So in this case, we're just trying to find a way to implement it for real. In fact, if you notice, the original one I put in at the end of beta was like I was trying to keep the tech in there also. So like, because again, it's fairly like benign tech as far as like how scary it was. So we really wanted to try to leave it in there if it was okay. But it was like, well, if you could super jump, why do it? But there may be cases and situations where you might want to do it if you. So at that point, the impact on the balance of the hero was much lower. So it's kind of like fine because we're not going to end up changing the balance.
So so it's
we'll
kind of
have to
like
see if that stays.
it's kind of like a balance between how accessible it is for like the player that just wants to start playing Mercy, how easy it is to do it, and how strong it is, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you want like more people
it's
to be able to
also-
do it consistently. I see.
Yeah, it's much more discoverable for new players as well if there's like a button for it or it happens automatically. Like before, you would only kind of see it happen, find out about it by witnessing another Mercy do it in the game, and you're just like, I can't do that. Well, what are they doing?
Yep.
Yeah, and I
Can
think
I,
another thing people underestimate is like, players who maybe physically have difficulties while executing those things, right? So that's accessibility in that respect as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you something. I know that we passed the question, but about the Genji ledge dash. So you said that it's not okay for Genji to like go all across the map and it's a bug and so on. And I completely agree with you. He has a lot of mobility. But what if, hypothetically speaking, if let's say somebody finds a way for Genji to do the ledge dash jump and it only propels him, I don't know, 10 meters in front or like a very short distance, would you be inclined to keep that in game?
I mean, that's something we could have done. That's what I was saying. We could have like tried to nerf the bug, which is weird as that sounds, but try to like, leave it in, or try to implement a solution to it rather than it being a bug, and then kind of have a nerfed version. I don't know. People would have been really stoked to see like a nerfed version, though, anyway, because they're kind of excited by the long range. But really, that came down to what I was mentioning, which is like that's kind of what it came down to. It's like even if we nerf this, do we want him to have this like extra range?
Even if it's
and-
just a little bit, because there's like something with Cassidy guy now, in which if you jump and shift, it just boops him a little bit. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Well, 10 meters is pretty far. So you suggested at 10
Yeah.
meters. I was thinking like that's
No,
pretty
no.
crazy. If it's just a couple meters, yeah. I mean,
Maybe,
I would be okay with
maybe.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe. So
But I don't know if
everybody
it's
start
worth like
finding bugs.
implementing that.
Wait, I got to follow up on that.
Okay.
that. And this is the former Rhine main in me and from a boy Flats listening somewhere. Why the B-Hop Shatter, man? Why'd you take it from us? Why'd you take this one little piece of joy we had?
God, I don't even remember making that explicit change. Do you remember, Josh, if we made that like explicitly? That
No.
might have just been the side effect.
I gotta say something, okay? I know that a lot of people said something about like bunny hop, Reinhardt, Shadag and stuff, but I don't think it was okay to be able to bunny hop Shadag out of a graviton. If you're locked there, you shouldn't be and then you slam and stuff. Like that's unfair, honestly. That's like the Genji ledge dash jump, not across the map. Like it's absurd, I would say. My opinion, my view. I'm a support. I don't like getting slammed by Reinhardts and so on, so I'm a bit biased, but yeah.
I'll have to look at that one. I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't fix that bug.
My poor boy. All right, so we've been talking a bit about like this, uniqueness of Mercy, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, uniqueness was kind of one of the things you prioritized early on in hero making, right? It was like we want heroes to be unique. But now we're getting to the stage where we got a lot of heroes, and when new heroes come out or when heroes are reworked, sometimes they start to overlap with each other, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people have remarked that maybe Doomfist tank, he feels a lot like a Winston in many ways, but slightly different. So is that something that's important to you guys? Like, do you still want heroes to be unique, or do you actually want hero overlap to start to come in now?
I mean, I would say the goal is to have unique heroes. That's what we want. But we have a lot of other goals too. One of which is making sure the heroes are very understandable and simple but deep. I mean, that sounds like I feel like other designers that would ever be listening to that, it's like, well, obviously simple but deep. That's kind of like the goal for every game design ever. But it's a pretty big pillar for us. We a lot of our abilities. When you think of an ability like, let me take an example, like a May wall. It's a pretty simple ability on paper where it's just, hey, I can create this wall, but there's some details about it that add some extra depth to it. That's sort of gives us more of that feel. So, for example, like the flat top means you can stand on it and use it as a ledge and lift people up and things like that. And the fact that they're pillars instead of a single wall health means it interacts with how the enemies deal with it and how they kill it, and adds a little bit of depth on the on the other end. So the stuff like that is always a goal, to keep things understandable but still deep. So with that goal in mind, it can be tough to keep everything really unique, because one way to make everything unique is just to keep adding things to it, right? Like it does this, and in this situation it does this, and like it's different than this ability because when you're stunned it works this way, and all kinds of like craziness. And a lot of times when we're working on prototypes, we get in that state because we're iterating on something and we want to add a tweak or just change it this way, and then we look at it and we're kind of back up and look at it like, this thing's kind of crazy. Do we really want like you look at the tooltip you have to write, you know, we have those F1 simplified tooltips, and when those things start to become like a paragraph, we're like, okay, maybe we got to rethink this a little bit. Is this what we want to do? Yeah, so we're, you know, that's part of the core philosophy of the design of the game. So that sometimes is in conflict with the unique heroes, as I mentioned. So I'd say broadly speaking, yeah, we want everything to be unique and feel interesting, and that's still a goal even in cases where there's some overlap, hopefully. But yeah, sometimes it's you know, I think as we keep expanding the roster, we'll see some cases it'll be you know, a little more overlap, and I don't think we're super like really worried about it. You know, for example, I think with something we've talked about, this is not a leak of any kind or any kind of spoiler or anything, but we've sort of idly talked about in this philosophy sense of like, let's say we wanted to do another sniper, what would that even look like? Because a sniper role is pretty niche, so you're like, you know, we sort of, when we made Widowmaker, it's like she's kind of the quintessential sniper with like a charging gun. You have to line your shots up and all this stuff. And, you know, here like Ash is pretty snipey, but it's not quite the same range and lethality of an actual sniper. So what could that look like to actually be different? And, you know, we've never actually really tried to create that, but it's kind of an exercise in what you're talking about trying to keep everything unique and you know, still having some overlap.
Yeah, some overlap is good sometimes. I know early on the community was saying like, hey, we need like more speed boost heroes because Lucio's the only pick for speed boost. And it's like there's kind of a question there of like, well, are you gonna play this hero instead of Lucio, or are you just gonna play both of them? Because more speed boost is always better. And it's like, we don't know. It's you know, people will figure it out, of course, but having more options and some overlap is usually a good thing.
It's like the threat of stacking, then, is it? Like the threat of the things stacking on top of each other keep you sometimes a little back.
Sometimes, I mean, think about double barrier, right? It's like, I mean, Orisa.
I think about it all day. I think about it all day, Jeff.
I bet you do. I mean, when we look at
Me too.
go all the way back to when Orisa was created, she was literally created. The first thing we thought about with that hero when she was first created was, you know, let's talk about what another Rhine type tank could be, like another shield tank could be, and how it could be different.
Like an alternative to what we already have.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because it's like, you know, we felt that there were a lot of players who loved playing Rhine, but there weren't a lot of alternatives in that play style. So in that case, it's like, you know, what could another shield tank be like, and how could it feel different? And that's kind of how Orisa even started. And, you know, we had this, we called them anchor tanks internally, the idea of this sort of like anchor for your team that's leading the charge. And they're not like diving the team to create chaos and create a window for you or anything. They're actually like pushing with your team more slowly. And that's, you know, obviously like something Sigma also comes out of that. So in those cases, it is true that we're trying to create that sort of parallel, but hopefully still keep them unique, which is why the shields work so differently. And we're still trying to keep that same gameplay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick like fluff question? Josh, go ahead. Finish your thought first.
I was gonna just say this comes up a lot internally in prototyping, where people are kind of comparing heroes' new abilities to things they've already seen in the game, and it kind of gets to a certain point where it's like, if you're relating it to like 3 or more heroes, it's like, oh, this hero does this thing, this one ability, and it's exactly like Orisa and Reinhardt and Wrecking Ball combined, then it's kind of its own thing at that point. Where
Yeah, I agree.
it's like, you know, you can relate it to other things, but it's not, you know, an exact copy.
I was gonna ask, like, because you said that you started adding some stuff that you were like, this is so complex, you know, we're not even sure we can keep this. Was there anything really fun that you were like, we made this, but we couldn't, like, we just scrapped it because we were like, nah, this is just too much?
Man, I could tell you a story about, you know, we've been working on MOIRA changes. That's not much of a secret. We've talked a lot about trying to look for MOIRA stuff. And, you know, we haven't been able to throw anything significant into the beta yet, but we've been looking for stuff for beta 2. And, you know, like we've tried all kinds of crazy stuff, but I'll just throw one out there. For example, we were trying, you know, we had this idea for this, you know, what if she could purge, which is kind of like a WoW term that shamans use in WoW, which is like an offensive dispel. Like, what if I could remove buffs, right? Because that's kind of interesting, and it kind of fits Moira's kit, and we thought that was kind of cool. We ran into a lot of control scheme issues with how can she do this mechanic now with no buttons left, but how do we do it? And we created a list of what we considered buffs, and it's very complicated in our game. What is a buff? Like, I don't know, is soldier sprinting a buff? Is the movement speed bonus that Genji gets when he ults a buff? Like, does that get stripped? Like, what is a buff in our game? So, we tried to figure out what we would even strip, and it got really complicated really fast. And that was just like, this is going to be completely not understandable. So, what's an alternative? And that led us to this idea of nullify, and what we were calling nullify. And nullify was this idea that you stick an enemy with it for some duration, let's say like 3 seconds or something, or 5 seconds. And during that time, specifically their damage dealt buffs and their less damage received buffs and their speed buffs were set back to non-buff status while that effect is on them. So it's kind of like a purge, but it's also state related. So if I put this on you, it's only suppressed while the state's on you, and then you get it back once it ends. Yeah, we tried it on Moira's orb. It was pretty interesting because you could you have the Lucio speed rush coming onto you, and you throw the orb at them, and you kind of slow the enemy team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a
Nice.
snare. It's not a snare. It just sets them back to normal speed. So they're slower than they would be. And of course, there's like trying to hit Genji Nano Blade with it, so to try to nullify Nano and stuff like that was pretty interesting. We ran into a ton of problems with this too. I don't know if that will ever see the light of day exactly. That got really complicated also. But I don't know. Now that I just said it, if everyone's super amped on, I'm able to try to fit it in somewhere.
It sounds like it's something incredibly broken. It sounds like it's something that's going to be incredibly broken initially, but maybe there's a middle ground somewhere. And honestly, I think that it brings a lot of hype to Moira, and it's like something that's missing from her kit has a reason to pick her other than just like heal and throw damage ribs and stuff, and left click and that's it.
Yeah, that's
it's
a lot of what
good.
we're talking about with her.
Personally, I love that idea. I know it's gonna be broken. I know everybody's gonna be like, no, and so on. I don't care about it. As a support player, you gotta be psyched about it, honestly.
It's very tactical, which is what I think fits what Moira is cool. Like what's cool or what should be cool. I hope about Moira. Josh, you were gonna say something. You were gonna.
I was just gonna throw in it also stripped overhealth for like a little while as like part of the nullify effect, and it was just like this extra big FU to Lucio and then he ult.
Oh, Lucio mains are crying, man.
You have a
cast made 5 Lucio mains cry.
Yeah,
so that maybe
it was a little bit of a problem.
So that maybe you can play Moira with other supports as well, other than Lucio, and just picking Moira to stall. Like this change. This would be awesome if you decide to go with it, honestly. Although it would be really broken and the community would rage a lot probably. But yeah, we can fix it, I guess.
I mean, a lot of the point was to try to find, or a lot of the point is, I guess, because we're still trying to find stuff from Moira that feels like those big playmake opportunities, right? Like if I do that, if I get the Nano Blade and I position, let's say it was the orb, it might not be on the orb or whatever. Let's say it's a projectile, a shoot, or something that hit the tag a Nano Blade Genji as it comes in, and I get to nullify the Nano. That's a big play, and that's like game winning on your side. Like we really want those. I mean, we were talking about this earlier about Ryan could get in and great shatter and kind of win the game for you. We talked about you get this clutch res on somebody on your team that has their ult, and they get to ult because of your res, and you win because of that. So there's all these plays, and that's really core to the game. We want to make sure that heroes have that, and ultimates are a lot of the ways that that's done, but it doesn't have to be. That's why Immortality Field exists how it is. That's why Sleep Dart is how it is, and all this stuff. So that's kind of been on our mind for Moira. Like, what would it look like? To put it very simply, like, what does a Moira Reddit clip look like, right? Like, what is the play, right? What is the play that you want that is the top post on Reddit for Moira? Like, it kind of doesn't really exist right now. Maybe you get like a 4K with your ult or something. But that's not really like crazy because it pierces everything and you're fast and you're regenning, so maybe it's not that hard to get. But like, if there was some playmaking opportunity there, you would see more of that.
I'm psyched to see what you guys are gonna come up with, honestly. I can't wait. These 2 ideas. Yeah, I'm happy just hearing them, even if they're not gonna be included. Speaking of like carry potential and so on, Josh, I gotta ask you this. You said that you play a lot of Ana, okay? And I've tried Ana for the first time in the beta. Up until then, I never played Ana in my life. But I know that she had 12 bullets, and in the beta, she had 15 eventually. How does magazine size and reload speed affect hero balance? Why 15 bullets? Why increase the magazine size?
So, magazine size is kind of like a bigger deal for some heroes more than others. In Ana's case, you're kind of choosing between shooting enemies and shooting allies, and we usually limit the firing duration by changing the clip and your firing rate. but in Anna's case, we had to nerf the Bionade. So in order to give her back a little power, um, one of the easiest avenues for that is just like extending how long she can go before she has to reload, and like how much healing she can do with that one clip. Um, and it's kind of like we picked that aspect because, rather than changing her healing numbers or her damage numbers, because we kind of want those to be in sync. She does 70 for each. Um, and doing something like just giving her raw health like
So-
we did for Zenyatta, that's one of the biggest changes you can make.
So it was kind of like compensation for the nade nerf. That's what you had in mind.
Yeah. It's like a little something, to make sure she doesn't drop in her win rate all that much, and hopefully it helps a little.
I see. I've been watching a lot of Overwatch League as well, and I've been playing a lot of Ana as well recently. And my opinion, for me, so from my point of view, I've always viewed that one of the key elements that define good Ana players in Overwatch League and in ranked and so on is reload management. From my view in this case, if you take away like reload management from 12 bullets to 15, it's kind of like you remove away a little bit of the decision making that some Ana players might be able to do better. Some pros might be able to do better than other pros. But what you do achieve with giving them 15 bullets, now I can see kind of like a reason, because you're trying to make the game and game mechanics overall more accessible. You said about Mercy SUPERJUMP that it should be more accessible and so on, and increasing the magazine size from 12 to 15 definitely helps newer players to understand and make Ana easier. The issue that I have though, and this is like a small request, okay, because this is like the rant and so on. I'm afraid that Ana's probably gonna get really nerfed considering how strong she is in Overwatch 2. So please don't nerf Ana.
Ana's one of the most popular heroes, so it's just
nerfed her a
pretty hard
little
to
bit
nerf.
already.
Yeah. I mean, the
Our
nade is
cooldown went up.
just, yeah. I was just gonna say the nade is really strong. It's always been insanely strong. Honestly, both halves of it are insanely strong, and it's
No.
been somewhat no.
No.
This is some ML bias. I gotta step in here.
You're
ML is
crazy.
in
No,
here
I'm
biased.
not biased.
He's
No,
gonna
what if you
spend
miss the nade?
45 minutes getting Ana buffed.
What if you miss the nade? I don't know. Get good. Don't miss the nade.
Oh.
Let's go.
But like,
I like it. Get good. I like it.
But,
But does it was interesting because you mentioned pick rate. Does that like at all do you care for heroes getting picked a lot? Like in that sense, like are you like, whoa, this hero's getting picked too much?
no, not really. I mean, we know certain heroes are the favorites. In fact, it's kind of an interesting stat. I don't think we shared this one. I'm not sure, but we were looking at stats like just after a season, like a comp season, and when it's like people are playing, I don't know, let's say they're playing quick play for a minute when we have a large off season. In the past, we had a pretty large off season actually, but we would look at the stats in the off season and like just see the pick rate change, and it especially when a hero like Ana is not meta at the time, and you just see like the pick rate just spike because it's like, oh, we get to play whatever we want now. Everyone plays Ana basically.
So
whenever she's good,
supports.
yeah, definitely. Mercy's up there too, but Ana's huge. So yeah, she's a bit tough to nerf. She's just super fun to play, and everyone loves her, and she's got those playmaking opportunities I mentioned, and she's just, I think, just a well-rounded hero that people love, and there are certain heroes people don't love to see in the meta, but she's not one of them. People love to see her in the meta, so she's kind of like, she's good in that spot. So, but there are cases like, with a nade at the anti-heal especially, it's like, well, there's a lot less barriers now, and heroes like Roadhog especially are just the extra suffer because you're just like, you really need that heal more than ever to look, to be able to stay alive. So I mean, you could still obviously stop the heal from Roadhog if you time it well, and it's still 3 seconds, I think, from 4, right? So it's still pretty decent, but at least Roadhog, if you hit him with it, he can go around the corner, wait a little bit, and maybe still get his heal off before he dies. Somebody comes around the corner and kills him. So that it's not like 4 Roadhog. That's just an example. There's just so much, like, it's so easy, much easier to land than nades. And
Can I quickly add a quick follow up? So I know I keep following up, so please feel free to be like, no, SCB, shut up. But does it ever go the other way then? Do you ever think, well, in the off season, everybody loves playing these heroes. These are the quote unquote fun heroes. Should we make them more meta? Does it ever go that way?
I mean, sometimes, yeah, we've talked about that. I mean, it's actually less that and more the opposite, where we've seen heroes that people don't like meta. Like Torb was a big one when Torb got his passive buff to be huge. At that point we're like, man, Torb's never been meta. Like, let's just buff him up a bunch and just let him get played, and then we'll nerf him if he gets like really crazy. And then I still stand by. I don't think he was like absurdly overpowered. I think he was very playable, and he was probably going to be in the meta. And people just rebelled instantly. It was like, you cannot do this. The game is broken. The game is horrible. So it was like, all right, well, okay, that's not going to happen. Then let's just nerf that back down. It was kind of an uproar, and it was like at that point we're like, we don't think he's super overpowered, but clearly people don't really want the Bastion meta to exist. So that's sort of why it's like, that's why he's like, he needs a rework. I mean, if we can't ever buff him because people don't want to play against him or play him, he just needs a rework because that kind of ties our hands, right?
So this is like what you take into consideration also with like reworks and stuff. Like if people don't view their kits as fun, or they're not having fun playing against them, then that's when you think about reworking that hero. So this explains the Doomfist rework. Okay, I got it now.
Easy. Okay, cool. Well, no more random follow-up questions. I'm gonna go back to one I had planned.
I'll stack afterwards, SVB, so don't worry. I'll cover you.
Okay, good. So, you mentioned as well, Josh, actually, that, potentially adding HP or taking away HP is like something you think about. At what point do you think about that? Because obviously it's a big decision, right? Like to change someone's HP. So at what point do you go, okay, HP, let's tweak it?
It's usually if we need to make like a big swing in like their win rate, like they're doing really poorly, or it's like one of the most powerful avenues we have for buffing a hero is actually changing their health pool, just because it affects so many breakpoints and things like that. But we generally try to reserve it for like close range heroes or heroes without mobility, and if there's other ways to clearly buff them that are easy, like that's usually the better way to go rather than changing HP, because it is such a big swing. And we also want to avoid, the situation where we're just doing this power creep of like inflating everybody's health pools and like, you know, increasing the time to kill by a whole lot.
And then Anna's gonna have 1,000 HP and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it really affects like how quickly you can like end a team fight and how much healing impacts things if they have huge health pools, because eventually the DPS are going to hit their reload and then healing is going to catch up, and you're just going to have HP pools kind of spiking up and down like constantly a little too fast. So yeah, if there's a way to buff the hero without changing their HP, that's usually the way to go.
And that's something you're quite conscious about, like power creep. You mentioned it, not my word, but is that something you're quite conscious
it's definitely
about?
a big concern for the community as well.
Speaking of some stuff here. Speaking of stuff, I don't have a good segue. Do you think you'll bring back some CC to the game? Will the new heroes have some form of CC, or the hard CCs will always be Ana Sleep Dart, Reinhardt Shatter? Also, will Cassidy ever get his stun back?
I feel like these two questions are heavily related. I feel like people probably are mostly thinking about Cassidy when talking about stuff like this. So it's been tough. It's tough because we're getting a lot of feedback that says people really appreciate the less CC, broadly speaking, in the game. Especially when the beta ended, we saw multiple posts and got feedback internally too about people going back to Overwatch 1 and feeling like, man, I was kind of enjoying the lack of CC. Falling back into this now where there's so much CC in the game is, I kind of miss the lack of CC. So they're certainly tied together, and it's tough to just sort of be like, oh, Cassidy needs help, let's put a stun back, because we're sort of slipping on the whole meta point of having less CC. Though I will say we have been reviewing some of them, and this is, I guess, another spoiler for beta 2, but we're for Junkrat, we're giving his trap back, his full mobilize. For that one, we
totally
felt
unbiased.
like, yeah, no, I don't even like Junkrat. I don't know what you're talking about. I wish he sucked. No, he I think we felt like it was a little more on the fair side of the CCs. You can kill it, you can see it. Well, hopefully you can see it, you can kill it, and also it doesn't completely stun you. You can still shoot, and you can still use some of your abilities to escape. And it was a little hard to tune that ability in the way that it was, where it was like this big slow, and still feel like it was impactful for him to throw and stuff like that. So for him, like giving that back, but we're still trying to hold the line on the rest of the changes for now. And I sort of hear the feedback on Cassidy. I get it. I understand it. I know that like some people, we've gotten the feedback, I should say, that he doesn't feel as effective as like this counter flanker and stuff anymore. We were hoping that the sticky nade would accomplish a lot of that same threat, his sort of close range threat zone that he could control space a little bit. Obviously, it's not quite as powerful in some situations, although it is a little more powerful in other situations. But I don't know that he's like has a huge problem necessarily, but that certainly is a change for him, and we'll monitor it. I'd say that I'm a little worried for all the reasons I mentioned before about actually just returning his stun to him, because it's one of the major stuns in the game, and something we did to try to help with the flanking situation, as well as giving support some help themselves. But we nerfed Tracer's damage quite a bit, and for the history of the game, I don't think we've ever nerfed her damage that I can remember. So I think she just had some ult changes a long time ago, but she's been pretty stable. So it goes to show that like we're kind of pretty aware that like her lack of counters, or her lack of a counter and the stun, or at least reduced counter, because I still think the sticky need's pretty decent against her, as certainly increased her power, so we've reduced her a little bit. And I'd love to try to get the game into that state where it feels more reasonable across the board without requiring these stuns. Because another problem that happened with the stuns is we had certain heroes that required stuns to deal with, like Wrecking Ball, Doomfist, stuff like that. We sort of like were balanced at the time with like, well, they have these hard counters. If you stun Doomfist during a combo or something like that, he just kind of dies usually. So it's a pretty common swap to like Cassidy or something like that, try to deal with them. So I think it's healthier for the game that the counters aren't that hard and that required, especially for on the newer player side, because they just don't know that, and it's just like Doomfist just gets to ruin their day and they have no idea what to do.
It's like you don't want a hard stop, like you want to play the game and you don't want to be like stopped instantly, there's a stun, you can't do your play, I guess. Kind of like that's the philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun for Doomfist, and it's not fun for the person who doesn't want to play Cassidy to stop Doomfist, right? So it's healthier for the game if it doesn't require that on either side.
And on this note, will the new heroes have some form of CC? Like, will they have stuns when you keep in mind when you design them and stuff like that? Or is it like completely out of the question, only like the original Ghost should have stuns and so on, stuff like that?
Yeah, we're trying to not do that. No, basically.
I think it'll be limited to the tank pool mostly, tanks, if we do add anything.
Tanks? So you think that stuns should belong to tanks, not supports? I don't
absolutely.
play support. Absolutely. Okay, so tanks should have like the tools to deny engages and so on. DPS should have the tools to like get kills and so on. Then supports, I guess, try to stay alive and heal. What's the view of it, of this?
Of support? Oh, well, yeah. I mean, the point of the change was to relegate all of the stuns and CC and mechanics and stuff to the tanks. I mean, obviously, it's not 100%. May can still stun with her ult, and there's still sleep dart. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a few outliers, and like Junkrat now has the root back, I guess. But by and large, we're trying to just make sure it's only the tank role, which does a lot of things for us. For one thing, there's only one tank now, so the most there can be is one hero's worth of stuns. Even if we make a tank that is very stun heavy, the game as a whole still won't feel like it has that many stuns in it compared to what Overwatch 1 could feel like sometimes. So that helps us a lot there. It also helps just sort of, as you were kind of mentioning, give the tanks a little bit more of an identity from a role standpoint, that they're able to, earth shatter and stuff like that, and pin and land these big moves like that.
So I think ML was trying to like get at, and I'll follow up for him. He's kind of like, what is support's job then?
What should the support do? What should the support do?
What's their remit?
Tanks have stuns.
I don't know if it's that. Yeah, I don't know if it's like that bucketed so easily that there's like the thing that supports do. I mean, as we were talking about before, we want the heroes to be unique. I mean, supports can do a lot of playmaking opportunities. Supports have a lot of ults and things that affect their team. Again, none of these are hard rules. There's things that break this. I mean, like, Widowmaker's ultimate kind of affects your team. It's kind of like a buff your team. It's not like an enemy targeted thing, even though it kind of is. Stuff like that. So it's not a hard rule. But we tend to try to think of it as like tank ults are like initiating tools and big like enemy team focused abilities often, and things like that, and often CC related. And support tools are more team focused by and large. So you're focused more on making your team stronger, saving them, and stuff like that.
So you're not doing things
and
to
DPS ults are. more
you're
damage.
you're not doing things to the enemies. You're doing things to your teammates to help them do things to the enemies, kind of like that.
Right, exactly.
I
Yeah,
see.
and again, not all cases.
Yeah,
It-
of course,
it-
it's
it-
not like strict and
This is
so on. I understand.
nothing's a hard rule. In
Mhm.
fact, it's better for the game
Interesting.
if none of these are hard rules.
Enablers. So support should be enablers, I guess.
Exactly. They should.
see.
They're what we used to call. I mean, the common term in game design is called force multipliers, which is like, you have somebody like Soldier 76. He's like a static value of damage, and you expect a certain amount of DPS out of him and everything. But then you have somebody like a support that enables and buffs that person to do more. It's less of themselves actually doing the damage. They're multiplying the ability for the other heroes to do their thing.
That's really cool. I like that. I like the idea. The force multipliers. That sounds like a team name, like an OD team name. Okay, so I got a question which I think a lot of the community are very interested in. Certainly, I get asked about it a lot. Will we see balance changes to Overwatch 1 while we're kind of rolling out Overwatch 2?
That's a good question. I don't know. To be honest, I think we would like to look into more stuff. We actually had an experimental patch we were playing around with internally. We ended up going with, but it was right after the last community card. We were looking at some ideas there, maybe bringing in. We ended up not doing it. To be honest, I don't remember exactly why, what was going on at the time, but there were some issues with it, and the timing was bad for some reasons that I don't exactly remember. But I think it's a reasonable ask, and it's hard when we have all these resources so focused on Overwatch 2 and trying to make sure we get these dates and everything sorted to try to spend some time on it. But I do think it's a reasonable ask.
Yeah,
So I
really
don't want
would
to commit to anything, but
yeah, no commitment, but I really would like to do balance patch for Overwatch 1. The timing of it is kind of tricky because it's like you don't want to take away too much from the beta as well whenever that drops, and then if you want to make bigger changes, you need resources from like other game development disciplines. You need animation, VFX, sound, and they're all kind of hyper focused on Overwatch 2 right now. So maybe like a big tuning pass would be super cool, or something kind of a little more experimental than we usually do, but we don't want it to get too arcadey or like a circus or something because it is still like a live service. And there's also kind of the question of like, do these changes that we make to the live game also roll into Overwatch 2? Are we only like picking and choosing those changes that can kind of be compatible that way, or do we do something crazy with Orisa because she's changing, so much anyway? She's getting a whole rework. But I mean, it'd be definitely cool to do something.
That's
Understandable.
very interesting. A lot of
Yeah.
considerations that I don't think we always think about.
Yeah, we don't think about it, but we definitely appreciate the answer, honestly, and I appreciate the transparency with this. I bet like it's really hard to say stuff like this. And honestly, speaking of transparency, just wanted to say a big shout out to like who had the idea of posting the stats with the Zen stats that increased his win rate and so on. I absolutely loved it. I think a lot of people loved it as well. Like that type of transparency is just through the charts. It's amazing, honestly. It's really nice to see. Like,
And for being here as well.
and for being here as well. Yes, for being here as well. Speaking of which, I'm gonna keep you one more question. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Okay,
Sure.
last question. What's the biggest change that 5 vs 5 brought to your hero balance philosophy?
You want to go first, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a whole lot of things we kind of had to feel out for, the loss of a tank. And early on, we kind of felt team fights were going on a really long time, and we kind of nailed it down to like healers are just healing so much, and there's
Healers?
tanks. Yeah, support.
Supports,
Uh,
yeah, supports, yeah. That's my trigger word. I'm sorry. Support.
Yeah, you got him.
Yeah, got him.
know,
I actually talk with
but
this.
there's more people that heal than just the supports, but
Exactly,
uh,
exactly.
Yeah, you're on a main job, or you say you play like I betrayed them. You betrayed us.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of a point I'm getting to, but one thing that I felt the game played better with less healing overall, and the reason for that is just it makes damage more valuable. It makes sustained damage and burst damage a little more equal in they're just raw value, and then you don't have to tune the damage as high. So, you don't have HP pools kind of bouncing from like 1 HP to full HP. We've all had that person in comp make the call like, you know, Junkrat's 1A, 1, you know, kill him. And you turn and you shoot him like within a second, and he's full HP already. And it's like,
Or they lied. One of the two.
you know, they do that.
Usually
a lot,
the second.
They usually lie. Yeah, he's
like, oh, yeah.
obsolete.
They've been healed. And there is kind of like this kind of catch-22 where there are support players that want to primarily heal. And so if we lower healing overall, then they feel like they're kind of trapped into that heal bot status a little bit more than they were before, just because, you know, the numbers are literally making you heal more often to get to full HP. But I think there's like a balance to be struck there where as designers, we want to create interesting choices, right? You see this in like Ana and Mercy's design where you can damage boost, you can heal. And there should be like kind of a little bit of tension between like, when do I do one over the other? In Overwatch 1, that's, you know, a majority of the time the right answer is to heal rather than damage. And and going into Overwatch 2, something we've seen the community kind of pick up on is, you know, sometimes it's a little more valuable for support to be doing more things than just like pocketing your tank or DPS and just pumping all the heals into them. Like sometimes it's a lot better to try go for like an angle and apply pressure to the enemy team, or, you know, land a utility on them like a sleep dart or a nade or something. You know, contribute to the fight a little more than just heal botting. So we ended up removing the heal reduction because, you know, it was already trending in the direction that it was valuable for support to be doing that sort of thing. And when we definitely don't want to push too far in the other direction where that's all they're doing. Ideally, the right balance would be, you know, it's kind of a tough decision to make in the moment. Like, should I heal this guy? Should I try to damage him? You know, the end result is as long as the enemy's HP bar runs out before your team's does, you're winning, right? So hopefully we can achieve that balance. I don't know if we're there yet, but it's a work in progress.
That's why you're the 4700 or whatever, and I'm in plat because you got the 4 head strats of make the enemy health bars run out before your team's do.
Yeah, you know.
It's an interesting insight, honestly. So I guess that you could say that in Overwatch 1, supports were viewed more as healers, while in Overwatch 2, they're actually becoming supports. Is that safe to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like that.
Yeah.
I see.
Sure, whatever you want.
Okay. Just so I know if I'm gonna change my Twitch name or not, because it's ML7 support. You know, so if I go for ML7 healer or not. So this is a very important business decision. So thank you for the transparency on this.
Sure.
Well,
before is Jeff, do you have any? I was gonna say if Jeff has anything to ask, I'll let him go. But I was gonna say, Josh, but just FYI, you're gonna be seeing a lot of Giga Chad Josh memes from now on because you know I think you've spoken so well, and at least my chat is already like Giga Chad Josh. They love everything you say, so I just thought I'd let you know.
Awesome, yeah. That's kind of the opposite reaction of what I was expecting because I try to avoid doing live streams and stuff. You know, I'm always forgetting what I'm saying, and you know, my train of thought just kind of veers off to the side. And
you spoke really well, man. You spoke really well.
Of you. This was really
cool.
Yeah, honestly, a big round of claps. Come on, chat, clap, Giga Chat, come on. Yeah, just this was awesome.
And I know we're eating. I know we're eating into your lunch. So quickly, Jeff, is there anything you wanna? And so thanks to these guys for not eating while we eat into their time.
Oh, you mean just to add to that the question? You mean?
Yeah. If you have anything from your end.
I mean, broadly speaking, like really high level, not really. There's not like major changes to the stuff I mentioned earlier about trying to keep everyone viable and playable at all ranks and everything. But there's so many like nuanced details about only one tank and there's less barriers and you know, the things we were really worried about weren't necessarily even a problem at the beginning. Like, you know, way in the past we talked about there was some concern that Widow was just going to run the show a little bit because less barriers, but you know, people are already adjusting and getting good at using corners and stuff to reduce her prowess, and you know, we ended up buffing her actually in the beta of all things. And we were worried about Zen actually at one point because there's only one tank. You just discord the one tank there is and just dogpile him, and we were worried that might be the strat, but like that doesn't, you know, Zen needed help too ultimately, turned out. So you know, we're still learning a lot as well, and figuring out exactly how this is all going to shake out. But I mean, that's what the beta's for, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
I guess we're gonna end on this tone. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for doing this. We loved it. I hope other people loved it as well. I'm sure that they loved it. I saw in chat a lot of giga chats and a lot of thank yous for doing this. And chat is saying that both of you are very cute. So just letting you know that, okay? Tell them we love them, okay? Tell them we love them. They say that they love you. So thank you so much for this. This was awesome, and we're excited to see the future, you know? Excited to see the future. So have a good lunch, have a good rest of the day, and take care. See ya.
Thank you, guys.